And do you have any idea when the other cases are going to be confirmed? How much time that will take?
I think, John, they are being adjudicated. I know one death case is in the review too, but then I know that the third death, and I would ask Jessica to chime in because I think that was also in the process of getting some additional source documents being collected and getting it adjudicated. So yes, the team is working on it, and there has been a lag with the adjudication, which we did recognize, and we are working with the corrective action there, John.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mhm. Okay. Thanks, Jonathan and John. Can we move to the next slide, please? So just giving a brief update on the safety side with the bleeding. We had 23 investigator-reported events and 7 were identified by the CC. Again, some of them were basically picked up within the source document itself. Of the 23 plus 7 identified, we have almost 24 events which have already been adjudicated by the CEC, and there are 2 major events, major bleeds, adjudicated as major bleeds. 2 were as clinically relevant non-major, and majority of them were minor. Now, compared to the cohort 2, we had just 1 investigator-reported bleed event, and it was adjudicated as a minor bleed event. Can we go to the next slide? We did had 1 death, which was mainly in the cohort 2, and it was adjudicated, and as shown before, it was mainly adjudicated as not related to the study medication, and it was a standard of care. We did have 2 hepatic events reported in cohort 1, but they were not confirmed by the CEC, meaning that they were either fatty liver or they didn't meet the criteria for the hepatic event, which are the specified criteria like patients having Hy's law or Hy's range, meaning AST, ALT more than 3 times and bili more than 2 times the upper limit of normal simultaneous, or hepatic events leading to a fatal outcome, or hepatic events leading to serious adverse events. So those were the criteria to be reported as a hepatic event. And 1 event which was confirmed by the CEC in cohort 2, when you're looking there, it's mainly a case where the patient had lymphoblastic lymphoma with mets to the liver, and that patient was adjudicated as hepatocellular event. And there was 1 other event where you say CC did not confirm that as an event. It was a case which was deemed as a fatty liver. Can we go to the next slide if there are no questions here? Sorry. John, Jonathan, or Ed, do you have any questions before we go to the next slide?
No, I don't.
No, please go ahead.
No,
Okay, thanks. Okay, great. So I know we have seen this slide before also, so I'm just going to go through it again. The number of patients who had at least 1 post-randomization adverse events or serious adverse events. So we have almost like 75% of the patients who had at least 1 reported event of adverse event in cohort 1 and 71% in cohort 2. The number seems to be high, but when we went back and looked at the adult VTE study, these numbers are very much at par. That's the first comment I want to make. And the second comment I want to make is majority of these events, the adverse events reported either in cohort 1 and cohort 2 were mild and did not resolve in any sequelae, and they were deemed as majority of them were deemed as not related to the study medication itself. With regards to the serious adverse events, there were almost like 23% in cohort 1 and 35, almost 36 patients, 36%, despite the numbers are a bit on the lower side if you look at the totality, 5. We did had 5 patients in cohort 1, which led to permanent study drug discontinuation. Again, the reasons I had shown you in the prior slides, either due to an adverse events or the subjects withdrawing or is the investigator's decision, mainly patient safety. And leading to study drug interruption, we have almost like 8.7%, and 3 patients in cohort 2 itself. Can I go to the next slide, please? Again, this is a list of the serious adverse events in the descending order and as anticipated in this patient population. Majority of them, what we have seen, is mainly related to the blood and lymphatic system disorders, followed by infection and vascular shock. There were few events, related to the nervous system. Majority of them, if I remember, were mainly due to a headache, but Maura can attest to it because Maura is more close to the serious adverse events. Any questions on this slide? Okay, can you go to the next slide, please? The most frequently related serious adverse events we just want to show you here itself is again febrile neutropenia followed by thrombocytopenia, vomiting, UTI, headache, and pulmonary embolism. We did have incidence of febrile neutropenia and thrombocytopenia because if you see, majority of these patients did had a concomitant chemotherapeutic agents because of their underlying malignancy, and they were having myelosuppressions, and that's the reason of we are seeing that being immunocompromised and having some myelosuppression, having febrile neutropenia, thrombocytopenia itself. But I presume there were none leading to the fatal outcome here itself, and all resolved. Next slide, please. Just to give you the patients who had study drug discontinuation, as I stated, there were 4 patients coming under the vascular shock disorder. And if you really look at the breakdown, what were these? One was basically a venous embolism, one was deep vein thrombosis, and one was peripheral embolism. There was one patient who discontinued because of a CVA, cerebral vascular accident. And this is one of the patients we had discussed last time also, a case of infective endocarditis having cerebral, I presume cerebral embolism, if I remember. Men, please correct me if I'm wrong. I think we discussed it last time, infective endocarditis leading to cerebral embolism, but we can come to it. Can I have the next slide, please? I would skip this. It's already, I've just shown it before, leading to study drug interruption. And again, these are not permanent discontinuation. This is only leading to study drug interruption, some study holidays because of the various adverse events we have seen, and majority of them, as anticipated, is blood or lymphatic system, then followed by infections and the respiratory shocks and the gastrointestinal disorders. Next slide. We've shown you one death which has already been adjudicated, but as of today, we have 4 deaths which have been reported in this program. There was one case where the patient had cardiogenic shock with infective endocarditis, and this outcome was fatal, and it was the edoxaban treatment arm, but they were not related to the study medication. These have not yet been adjudicated as yet. We did have one case of pleural effusion, and again, this is the case with malignancy. I can give the details if the DMC members want to get more details on these 4 deaths. Again, the next case, which is in the standard of care arm, was a case where the patient has pneumococcal sepsis with non-cardiogenic pulmonary edema followed by acute respiratory distress. And the last one is a case of sepsis with a fatal outcome, and again it was on the standard of care. None of these cases were reported by the investigator as related to the study medication. So yes, only one case has been reported and adjudicated by the CEC members, the adjudication committee, and there are 3 deaths which are either in the last stages, meaning there are 2 in the probably a phase 1 or a phase 2 stage being sent for adjudication. And there is one recent death which we are still in the process of collecting the dossier.
Anil, this is John Vendenijk. I think that the pneumococcal sepsis is a different patient than the other one, because you mentioned pneumococcal sepsis and then non-cardiogenic edema, but when you look at the subject numbers, it seems to be that the sepsis has the issues, correct?
That is correct, and I presume the one which got adjudicated, John, is 2901.
Okay.
That's the one with pneumococcal sepsis.
Okay, thanks for just clarification. You okay?
Oh, you're absolutely right. My apologies because I mixed up
No need for apologies, but that's just clarification. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, John. Next slide. Okay, that brings the end to my presentation, and any questions, if we have not answered, we'll be more than happy to answer after the meeting or via email. I would hand it over to Min to run us through the interim analysis. So Min, it's all yours.
Thank you, Anu. So